Hey gang, what's up? So tomorrow I'm seeing the film Wish, Disney Animation's new installment to celebrate 100 years of their studio. I thought before going to see the film I should do my initial thoughts. I've heard the soundtrack and I'm quite intrigued as to what this film is going to be. There has been a lot of talk online about the animation style for this film. I don't particularly mind it from the trailers. I see what they're going for. I'm interested to see how it works out in execution overall. In terms of the music, they've been releasing a track every week and I've been keeping up with that. I'm quite a fan of the songs. It's nice to hear some classics like a Rebellion March and even a villain song which we haven't got since Shiny and Moana. The recurring theme I've found with the songs so far is they are quite poppy and they just sort of stop. There's no proper ending or finish to each of them, and the wordplay in it doesn't quite work. Maybe when I see the film as a whole, it might work a little bit better with how these songs feed into their respective scenes. I'm interested that we are getting a proper Disney villain who has been shown to being evil in the trailers, and that makes me very excited. Asha seems like a fun protagonist for this film. Ariana DeBose is already doing an excellent job in promoting the film and her voice in the soundtrack is awesome. I really hope this film does do well because I'm a big fan of Disney animation and want it to succeed. So I'm gonna go see the film and I'll be back to tell you about my honest reviews for it. Right, it's now been a few days since I watched the film to give me time to digest it. I've given it some thought and will likely be releasing quite a few videos about this one. There's a lot to talk about. I want this video to be an overall review of the whole film with limited amount of spoilers so you can judge for yourself if you want to see it. In future, I want to do more in-depth analytical videos comparing elements of this to others. I'll probably put a poll out to see which one of those you want to hear. As you can probably guess by the title of this video, this film is not one of Disney's greatest hits. From the film's conception, the story had a lot going for it, seeing how it explores the wishing star that's been present through so much of the studio's rich history. Obviously there's going to be some criticism in this video, but it all comes with a place of love. I want to see the studio succeed as it was what my childhood was kind of based on in terms of film. There's a lot to delve into, so without further ado, let's get on with it. As I've already mentioned, Wish is the next in the long line of Disney animated films, starting all the way back in 1937 with Snow White and Seven Dwarfs, arguably the most important time in animation history. The film was directed by Jennifer Lee, now CCO for Disney Animated Studios, and Chris Buck, who worked together on the Frozen franchise along with having a lot of influence over the 2010s films. They brought in the award-winning songwriter Julia Michaels to compose the music for the film, along with principal cast of Ariana DeBose, Chris Pine and Alan Tudyk, but more on all of them later. Production began back in 2018 with ideas of Disney's 100th anniversary floating in the air. The core idea was to explore the wishing star, a core concept that Disney has played with over the years but never really delved into before. This was an excellent opportunity to more in depth as to what that represents. One of the most experimental aspects of the film was its art style, which is very divisive globally. The intention was to blend the classic 2D animated art style of Disney from the past with the 2010s and beyond CG style they've been using since Tangled. However, this has to be where my criticism of the film begins. There's nothing particularly special about this new style. In theory, the idea of these blended styles could work awesomely, and it's a great celebration, but this didn't land for me. The character designs don't look lively enough, and the world overall just doesn't feel lived in. It's just flat and uninteresting. The person I saw this with even said it looked lazy, and to a point I do agree. After decades of developing an art style and identity, this seems like a step in the wrong direction, which is a shame. For all the flaws of Strange World and Raya and the Last Dragon in the last few years, these features still feel dynamic and cinematic with worlds and characters worth exploring. To me, this is made worse by the fact that it was the Frozen team that worked on this film. For all the flaws that Frozen has as a franchise, the world still felt lived in. Arendelle is a beautiful kingdom that you get to explore. Rosas is not that. The kingdom of Arendelle feels alive and vibrant, with a clear context and history that helps the story flourish. The City of Roses lacks that scale and intimacy. Within the walls, we rarely see more than the marketplace, the stage where the king does his big speeches and stuff, and then up in the wishing tower. We don't get to explore any aspect of the city life at all. And even these locations that we do see lack weight due to the flat art style. Over the last 5 years, animation from big studios like Disney, DreamWorks and Sony has been majorly experimental with various qualities of success. Back in 2018, Sony Animation released my favourite film of all time, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, which completely changed the landscape and possibilities of animation. This began a new era that the likes of Disney and DreamWorks have tried to mimic over the years. DreamWorks had their success with a similar art style with Puss in Boots and the Last Wish last year, which is a fantastic film. But Disney's attempt at this just falls flat. It loses the magic and comes across empty. I think this is talk for a future video. Now, what had me the most frustrated about this film was its plot. Mainly because of how much potential it had and didn't use. The idea of a powerful king who grants wishes taking on an apprentice who slowly learns his darker desires is a great one for the premise of a Disney film. Wish, however, is not that movie. This strangely paced 95-minute film leaves a lot to be desired in terms of basic plot, character arcs, and its execution. This is one of Disney Animation's shorter features in recent years, not by much, but you can feel it. Scenes move past too quickly and characters jump to decision without a second thought. Let's take one of these scenes as an example. At the beginning of the film, Asha meets King Magnifico in her interview to become his apprentice. By the end of the scene, after being told that rarely anyone sees the wishes, Asha has seen them and kind of discovered King Magnifico's true intention. These are two influential discoveries that she should discover along her journey and not be handed right at the beginning of the film. Overall, Asha doesn't really learn anything or grow at all. Her struggle doesn't even exist. It could have done with more analysis into Asha's growth as she goes on this quest. By the end of the film, I don't feel like I know any of these characters more than I did when I walked in. On that note, the conclusion of the story does not feel earned. All the major characters landed in interesting places where I hoped the story would go, but why am I unsatisfied by this? Even the wishing star that comes down to help Asha in her quest kind of becomes irrelevant by the end of the story. It makes him feel unnecessary in the first place, which in a film developing the wishing star feels like a misstep. Don't you think? This sucks further as the star's arrival is supposed to be a major turning point in Asha's story, and you don't really feel the weight of that. The third act loses any weight that was established with Magnifico's turn and the uninspired magic that he uses. Magnifico's magic is boring and he ends up being generic and bland by the end of the film when he is possessed by a forbidden book. It's such a shame because the setup for this character was really interesting and I wanted to see that continue throughout the whole film. And in talking about the story, we must talk about the wishes themselves. I thought the premise of these wishes was superb. I love the idea of Magnifico taking the wishes and wiping them from people's memory so he's in complete control and people just get on with mundane life without wanting more. It's a really interesting premise and I wish that they delved more into it. The same problem I've got with most of this film. This is a great concept and challenges the characters to work past giving their hopes and dreams to someone else to solve and instead working towards them themselves. It's a really uplifting message for a family audience. That brings us nicely into discussing the main characters in this story. Asha, voiced wonderfully by Ariane DeBose, is boring. She plays on all the tropes that the Disney 2010 princesses live on, with being a charming yet quirky character. It's been done to death, and there's nothing fresh added to the selection this time. Her struggles just kind of fall into place, and even when things don't go to plan, by the end of the film she is just rewarded for them anyway. This character just needed more time and focus on her specifically, rather than these random side characters, so that she could really flourish and become one of the greats of Disney history. She doesn't feel like she has her own identity, and I really need to understand what she personally represents. Then there's Magnifico, the character I'll probably be discussing future on this channel. This manipulative king presents a promising antagonist for a classic Disney adventure. We haven't seen the likes of a truly striking villain since Mother Gothel all the way back in Tangled when CGI animation for Disney began. The directing team have said in interviews that they wanted a villain that the audience could root against right from the start, harkening back to classics like Scar and Maleficent. However, What seems to have happened is they've moved their twist villains right from the end of the film to the start. There have always been twists with Disney villains. Think of any time a main character has gone to the villain for help and then they've been stabbed in the back. The difference with those is the audience know that they're a villain on the side. What seems to have happened here is they've done that, but in the promotion for the film, not in the film itself. Here, we don't get to see Magnifico before Asher does at all, and she immediately jumps to the conclusion that he's doing something ambiguous. It surprises me that he's hidden being a villain for that long in that city, seeing as he opens up to Asher, a girl he's just met, immediately. This could have benefited from the audience learning Magnifico's motivations and backstory beforehand. This way, when Asher arrives, it can be more of a slow burn of we know what's coming and waiting for her to figure things out. What does slightly redeem this sloppy character is the voice work from Chris Pine. He does a decent job with what he's given to work with, and although the writing isn't consistent, his portrayal is pretty in line, and you can feel him go unhinged towards the end of the film. And sadly, Magnifico is the most developed character in the film, and I'm still wanting a lot more from him. In the third act, he loses all of that character development from the first half and becomes a flat, one-dimensional character. It's a shame because he did have all the makings to be a classic staple of Disney animation. Magnifico also has a wife in the film, and she is completely underutilized. Her switching sides towards the end of the film doesn't really add up. Once again, characters making decisions very quickly for the sake of doing them. This character was bland and unimportant enough that you probably could have cut her from the whole film and not really made a difference. There is also Valentino, your classic animal sidekick, and to be honest, I don't really have a problem with him. He's just there to hang around, say a few jokes to keep people happy. The jokes needed work, but that's beside the point. And sell merchandise, because you always need one of those. Valentino is fine. And voiced by Alan Tudyk. Always a win. I'm gonna use the word boring again, this time to describe Asher's friends and her family. There's nothing interesting about any of them, and there are way too many of them who just don't do anything. Her friends are very blatantly based on the Seven Dwarfs, and they just reference those personalities rather than giving any of these characters anything interesting. Overall, I don't really feel connected to anyone in this film. Julia Michaels was not the right fit to compose for this celebration. She is known for being a Grammy Award-winning pop singer-songwriter who has worked with the likes of Selena Gomez and Justin Bieber, to name a few. She is very talented in her area, but I don't think her style really gels well with this film. She is not a musicals composer, and that is the direction I feel she is being pushed for this film. She's trying to make it work, but it's not landing. In isolation, before the film's release, I actually quite liked a lot of the songs. It was nice to have these certain archetypes of songs, like a villain song, finally, a rebellion march, which is pretty cool, and this just uplifting song with I'm a Star. That one didn't land though. These songs in the context of the film, however, do fall flat. Overall, this creates a disconnect between the film and the songs. The film doesn't add up as one big picture. And what hinders these as well is none of the songs have any memorable visuals to go alongside them. The major thing that bugged me about these songs in the film were how abrupt they were. They just cut in and cut out with no rhyme or reason, to be honest. Over the Disney Renaissance, Alan Menken and Howard Ashman perfectly crafted their songs to fit into the overall narrative. It slides right into place with the score, which naturally progresses into these musical numbers to heighten the characters' emotions and thoughts as they go from talking to singing. This element is lost for this film, as songs just begin out of nowhere because this needs to be a musical and breaks up the flow of the film. You don't really learn anything meaningful about the star in I'm a Star and the effect it has on everyone, and Welcome to Roses just seems like a blatant rip-off of Family Madrigal. Something about this soundtrack and generally the film's pacing that just feels out of place. Some of the songs feel like they're in the wrong order, and you get halfway through the film and you've already had like 5 of them. It's too rushed and then too spaced out. It's just a bit of a jumbled mess. There is wordplay attempted, but it doesn't land and it feels forced. This is what I'll refer to as the Lin-Manuel Miranda effect. The songs struggle rhythmically with their syllables and their rhyme, which devalues the overall songs. As said before, I can listen to these on their own and get a bit of a kick out of them, but nothing more than that. I don't imagine younger kids sitting in a car singing along to these to the same level of Let It Go, as there is too much going on and they might not even get it. There is an excessive word count in all of the songs. It's great to get some more Latin representation in these films, but it kind of misses the mark on these tracks. Wish is lacking in its own individuality, a problem brought around partially because of its purpose. This film is supposed to celebrate 100 years of Disney and goes no further than that. Rather than being allowed to flourish on its own 2 feet, the film makes constant meaningless references to previous Disney works. It doesn't grow this franchise going forward. What this film should have been is a celebration of what the past was, by being its own new thing and showing how far the studio has come over the years. The concept of the story is the perfect story for a Disney classic. The promises of this film are squandered by those references. The Snow White cartoon from 1937 is still available, so if I want to watch The Seven Dwarfs, I can go watch that. Or wait till 2025 to see this live action film, if it actually comes out. We'll see what's going on with that one. The whole film just feels like a collage of everything put together and not really stuck down well to make it all look like a complete finish. I also don't really understand what demographic this film was for. Sure, Disney films are generally targeted at kids, but they are family movies that have layers that adults and teens can enjoy. This doesn't have anything. I saw this film on opening night in the UK at my local cinema, and the fact that the cinema was almost empty besides my friend and I, 2 couples and like 2 or 3 families with kids, that was really disheartening to see. I remember the days back in 2013, god 10 years ago, when I saw Frozen as a kid and the whole cinema was heaving because it was the next big Disney thing and Disney really had a staple over everyone. To conclude, this film could have been so much, but struggles to find itself in a global context and its identity. I believe there is a brilliant film waiting to happen there, and giving it a separation from being the anniversary and more time could have really benefited. Sadly, the film I saw is just a shell of what it could have been and needed a lot more fleshing out. I'm gonna be brutal and give this film a 5 out of 10. Sorry, Disney. I think I'll be talking about this one for a while, as I do have criticism of the film, but I also just want to get a conversation starting about it. Disney animation is quite important to the media, and I think it needs to be discussed. If I had influence in the studio right now, I'd want to see them take more of the 2D path completely. Go back to those classics and build up that brand again. They're really losing their identity. I'm hopeful for whatever comes out next, which they still haven't announced. Very worrying that all we've heard from Disney Animation is they're doing Frozen sequels and Zootopia 2? We'll see what happens there. Anyways, thank you for watching this video, it really means a lot. If you haven't already, please subscribe to support my channel. Seeing how many views this channel is getting so far is really great, and thanks for your support. Currently, while recording this, I hope it doesn't drop, I'm at 50 subscribers, which is awesome. I have a ranking of all 61 now animated Disney films that I've been working on for a while. However, I don't want to film and release this video for a while because I want to know that there is a need for it. If you'd like to see that video, please subscribe to the channel and I will make it if I hit 100 subscribers. That's my challenge. I will also probably be putting polls out about this film and which aspects of it you want to hear in more detail, just to see what there's a want for. Hopefully there'll be another video releasing next Friday. Until then, do check out other things I've got going on this channel, including my latest college project. In the meantime, have a good week and know you're awesome.